For designing and building this character, it was based on a MetaHuman. Um, so we, obviously the suit itself, the costume and everything like that was custom made. Um, but the face itself, the character, and the structure, the body and the proportions were basically a MetaHuman. We started there, and that's where we kind of built on top of. So looking at the blueprint um, of that, we actually have the helmet, which is a separate asset. You can hide that, and that's basically a character underneath. So she's again, she was based on a MetaHuman, which we create in the MetaHuman creator, character creator, and we did some modifications afterwards, which we'll get into. Some of even the shadows around the that area around the eye was basically it was an area so we could actually create some shadowing in some areas, so it didn't feel so clean when we actually saw this. This is stuff as we got in we could augment and mess with. So let's get into the character. So how do you start? So basically, this is a Quixel bridge. They have a whole MetaHuman library that you can start with, and that's what we started with. Kind of finding a character that looks like she'd be a good base for our character that we were creating. We opened it up and started to mess around with you can do all kinds of cool stuff where you can blend different faces together to create a custom face. I highly recommend, if you haven't gotten into the Quixel MetaHuman creator, definitely get into it. It's fun. It's just fun to mess with and play around with. But there's a lot of custom things you can do here. Like I said, we're blending a lot of these heads together to create the right head I wanted. The other is once you get into that, creating all that and modifying it, then you basically save it out. And it's much like we just showed you with the Megascans. As you download this file, this is going to take a bit to download, unfortunately, because it's a lot of, this is going to take a lot longer than the Megascans assets. There's a lot of data in here. So as we wait for this to download, the idea is that this is open in our scene, just like we were in the Megascans library. We downloaded that, we added it to our project. Now let's open in Unreal Engine 5. So now we can see this is the head, came in, and we can start messing with it. There's so many different cool shaders and tools that are already built in. We started to customize on top of that, which is something that anybody can do. You can just add on top. But the basics here are pretty cool, and they're actually in a really good place to start with. So your eyes, you can mess around with the eyes, the color of the eyes, any of that, the size of the iris, the skin itself. All those can be adjusted, and there's just this is also something that I recommend, messing around with, understanding what each slide and level does. Most of it's pretty descriptive, but it's good to kind of dive in and just mess with the slider, see with the how it alters. You're either the shininess, the sweat, the dryness, the roughness, all that stuff. That's a part of this that makes this character look the way you want it to. There's areas of adding red to the nose to there's so many places you can adjust to get the exact look you want. All right, if we scroll down, we can get to some of the other elements. Actually, let's look at the eye real quick. So the eye is pretty sophisticated. There's an iris, pupil, and sclera, and there's a lot of flexibility to adjusting that. And some of these you can just click on and adjust them as needed. It's a lot of fun actually. So what I feel is when we're designing a character, especially a human character, it's always good to look for reference. But the MetaHumans are a great place to start. So when it came to our suit, this is, we collected a bunch of like designs, did our own little sketches, and just inspiration that was from different various shows too as well. And this was kind of a collection to figure out like, okay, I like this kind of yellow feel. It feels like a worker. So we started sculpting it based on that, and building out the suit itself. And this just shows, like, as we were going, the suit that was being constructed and built all in ZBrush and Maya. And the tubes, everything was, based on the reference and the designs that we had started with. This was kind of where we were going. We'd fill out a few things, like some hoses coming off, or fill out the neck a bit more as we were going, but this is kind of the start. Then here you can see it's fleshed out a bit more. So this is after getting it past the model phase and the UV phase and actually getting into textures. Mainly using substance to paint with. And there was kind of a couple of modes or looks to her suit as well. This is more the clean look we actually had here, where the average, we actually aged this up a bit more as we went, but then we actually had a look, later on when she's actually damaged. But this is, kind of where we started. Then she actually crashes in the film, so we wanted to take that and go further and crack the shield, the glass, and then also put scratches not only on the helmet, but also on her face, which you can do easily in MetaHuman. With the MetaHuman is, there's textures there, so you can actually mess around with them like you would with anything. Then we developed her kit, her toolbox, and this is where we were actually. This is the main thing she carries when she comes off the ship. And it basically has everything that she's going to work with, and then she actually has this thing that's we think is a weapon. It's a welder. So the welder is our main like light source, and it's something that projects welding from a distance when she's working. So she actually ends up using it as a weapon. So you can see here that how far we went with the textures. This is how we dirtied up her suit as well, which really took it to that level that she's been working for probably years in space doing this. And then, we wanted to keep the same color palette with the yellows and stuff on her suit and the case itself, her tool case. So then once we actually start getting into seeing what she looks like in the scene, we'll set it up in the scene that we built, our environment that we just showed you, how that was created, and drop her in without any animation really. It's just more just to see how all the shaders work within the lighting scenario that we're actually going to create. We're going to have for the exterior, and then we'll probably bring her in for the interior to do the same thing, to see and basically take the camera and move around to see how everything holds up, how the spec, if there's any places that we need to actually work on. So this is a good way because this is all in-engine, real time, but it's the cameras and lighting that we'll be most likely using in a similar fashion. So we're able to see and break down any elements that may be flawed or looks weird by just doing a little exercise like this. Now, again, when the thinking of coming up with a character like this, there was a reason that we actually put a mask on her. So part of that was we wanted the character to be realized. We wanted her to kind of look as realistic as possible, have some personality. A lot of the personality would come in from the eyes and around the eyes. But we knew there was going to be dialogue too. So how do you create something? And this was the perfect scenario: is create a character that speaks, but you can't see her mouth. So it made it doable for the times the time we actually had to accomplish this. So those are things when you're thinking about designing a character, think about like what the final execution is going to be, and that was a big consideration of, do we show her face? Does she ever take the helmet off? In the short that we were in, we realized there wasn't going to be enough time, and there's no reason because she's always in this atmosphere that's slightly toxic or in space. So all those components that we just saw, how it was built, and again, it was sculpted in both ZBrush and Maya, and brought into Unreal, and UVs were created and painted in Painter. We were able to now go in and start to apply other elements to her, and adjustments to part of the character herself. So, like I said, we actually went in and we painted this area around her eyes so that it shadowed where the mask was. Part of that was just so that it was a natural way of creating that looked natural without being an AO, but an ambient occlusion type of feel. So when the mask was set onto her face, that it wouldn't look cut out. It would actually look like there's a natural shadow, plus there's like dirt around it. So that was the thinking behind that. All right, so that was showing you with the helmet off, kind of what she looked like. All these little components here, you can see like they all have like their own textures, and really big. I'm really big on the details. So I wanted this character to hold up close, far away, and also just read very well and not be too noisy. So that's when you're doing a spacesuit, it's a fine line because there's a lot of components of hoses and plates and material. So keeping a lot of the material the same color was another way so it doesn't feel noisy. Now, I'm showing you like how we did the helmet where we fractured that. We also, have this switch that we created in our blueprint that we could actually go back and forth from her damaged look, both on her suit and her face, after she crashes her ship. And it made it easy so when we were actually in our sequencer, we were animating that when we got to those sequences, it's not bringing another character in that had it. It was actually already embedded in this blueprint. It's just a switch that we turn on and off. Now to create that's a process. That's a team that helped us create a lot of this. The company is Shapeshifters. They helped us actually create her in a lot of ways. There's a lot of these extra components that we've adapted and worked with them on. But when I started this, MetaHumans was fairly new to us. There was a lot of things we didn't know, and Shapeshifters is actually a really great company that actually does a lot of their work with MetaHumans, so we learned quite a bit. And they also helped build some of these the switches that I'm talking about, like all of this stuff. Like what was cool here is like a dirt, like fingerprints that was on her shield or her glass that you could actually just tweak, modify, take the amount down. And it was nice to have like a page like this, which is basically our default shader page that had a lot of those components, like her groom, her damaged look, the sweat itself on her, the fingerprint, all that stuff. Opposed to having to find it, it's good to when you have a blueprint, which is like a component of a bunch of different elements put together. That's really what this is. It kind of helps put all those components in and you have access to by your fingertips to be able to change anything on the fly. So sweat was another part of it too. Being able to customize our sweat. So that was a map that we created. We painted a map that was that allowed us to do drippy sweat around the eyes, sweat around the nose, since we really wanted to showcase that. And it doesn't come with a MetaHuman. That was something we applied on top. And then these factors here would just, as you adjust them, you would be able to see the intensity of the sweat when we need it. So we could have in some scenes this more intense than others, especially when she's running, as we get close to the end of the film, when it's really intense. We see a change in her before even she crashes. Okay, to sum this up, so it's, when it comes to human characters, it's good to, find reference or an inspiration to start with, especially when you're using the MetaHuman creator, or just have fun and mess around with it, which is kind of what we did for the most part. Now, when it came to the suit, again, sum that up is, look for reference, created a basic design for the helmet, and kind of what the team started to build from there. And from there, it was we bring it in after it's built from Maya, and then create the shaders, textures, and then finesse it. And that's basically making our human character. There's a lot to it. It's hard to get into. It'd be hours and hours of just that alone. But I wanted to give you an overview of just how we create her, so we can go on to the other components of making the short. All right. Thank you.